So what's going on?
Not much. Just wrapped another project.
I need some Dawn Ritz enthusiasm and optimism because the world's coming apart, sort of, in Russia
Sort
at
of.
least.
I mean, well, the thing is, though, is like we don't have to buy into all of the news, and to really, I think that the best thing that's working for me right now is to tune into what can I do today, and try
Right.
not to put the whole weight of the world on my shoulders.
So what have you done? What'd you do today?
Meditated. I did worked on some pants. I also took a little bit of me time. I set my alarm for 10 minutes and allowed myself, I got a little bit tired. So I said, okay, I knew that this was coming up. And so I allowed myself 10 minutes to just do nothing so I could relax my mind for a bit so I could be present for this moment.
So you didn't have to work today. It was just a you
Um,
day.
Well, yeah, I mean, technically, there was a few things that I was doing that was wrapping up from another job, and then, that was that. But it wasn't an onset day.
Wow. So what did you wrap? Like what kind of show? Is this something you could talk about, or is it
A little
something that
bit.
you just until it's actually in production or on television you could mention it?
Yeah, I'm allowed to talk about it a little
All right.
bit. I wrapped it's a project for Debbie Berman so she's best known for her work on, she edited Black Panther and Spider-Man Homecoming, amongst others, and now she's transitioning into directing. And so she wrote and directed a project that I costume designed for her. And it's starring, oh, I press pause. I'm like, I don't want to say anybody's name wrong. So I like to, it's Jasmine is her first name, but she has a middle name too, Jasmine Cephas Jones.
Oh,
And
cool.
she's best known from her work on Hamilton.
So sounds like an exciting thing. Is that normal that people from wardrobe go into directing?
Well, so Debbie was editing, and then so she's transitioning into directing. And to me, it makes perfect sense. And I think to a lot of people, because editing, there's a lot of pressure. I've never done the job, so I'm only merely speaking from a costume designer standpoint, but, understanding that they're editing the story together, and then looking if there's like gaps in the story, and then, potentially suggesting reshoots or pickups or something to help really, no pressure, but it's like the icing on the cake, they're so I think it makes perfect total sense. And I think right now is a really good time for female directors, female cinematographers. There's definitely a warm welcome in the industry.
Finally.
Yes.
I mean, what took so long? I mean, there have been women working in Hollywood in all areas, but certainly a dearth of, well-known directors. So that's a good thing.
Absolutely. And Debbie's definitely a fearless leader. She's really, really good with attention to detail. She cares about, every angle, every department. So it's such a joy to work with her, and somebody who has such a high bar.
Are most gigs that you take um, like what's run of the mill in terms of things that you do, but is it different with each project? Obviously, subject takes. Is it something that you get excited about every single time?
Yes, it just cut. I think the last part of your sentence cut out, so I want to make sure I'm fully understanding.
Yeah, just
Um,
tell me. It doesn't have to be a boring thing. But you always work on really interesting things, and so there's got to be something that lights a fire under you.
yes. Well, I don't always say yes to everything, but I will say I do say yes to most. I do credit it to, I'm going to just start coming out and saying it now, though, too, but to the God, to God in the universe, definitely in respects to energy, alike energy attracting alike energy. So I'm always in extreme gratitude, and I myself sometimes get really woed and very like, wow, this is so cool. This is right up my alley, when the phone rings, and like, especially for this project too, it was from a dear person that's always stood out in my life, a friend of mine that we met at Sundance, and she's a producer and one of my favorite artists. I love Joan Jett and really respect her. And she had released her documentary and was playing a private show. And that night we went, and it was, I got to meet Joan, and I was like, wow, this is such a memorable night for me. And I definitely credit that over, to my friend for really how it was just help making that happen, effortlessly. And so it was nice to hear from her. And usually we do hikes together, but this time she's like, hey friend, haven't talked to you in a while. We definitely need to catch up on a hike, but I have something I think that would be of interest, and it really is, because I really respect people who are masters of their craft, who are authentically themselves. And I feel like, Debbie was definitely that. Jasmine, as an actress, and getting to learn about her story, she's definitely that. And so, there was an amazing production designer, and it's really neat how these things form, and come together. And I, trying to think further into your question though too.
Well, no, you answered it. It's
Is
like an
that it?
amazing, it's an
Okay.
amazing chain of events that you could even attribute to the positivity of the Joan Jett documentary, which I just watched.
Oh, you did?
One of my
Yes.
favorites.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Kevin Kerslake directed that, and he's I think he did like Nirvana videos, and it made perfect sense, and he hit the nail on the head. It was so well done. What was your favorite part?
Oh man. Well, I love her. I like her sort of collaborator slash manager. He's a New Yorker, Italian guy.
Oh yeah, yes.
Like he
Yep.
wrote some. I think he even wrote. There's a great rock song um, that the Bubble Gum Light Company did, or something like. He wrote "Gimme, Gimme, Gimme Good Lovin'" or something like that. But he's really cool. I just like the whole documentary, and I love talk about authenticity. I mean, everything about her is she loves rock and roll.
Yes.
You
I mean,
know,
she is. She's and as a female doing it at that time, selling CDs in the back of her car, having started the Runaways at 15, with Kim Valley and Cherie Curry. It's so, she's just super fascinating. She's her own. She owns it as her own.
I think Folly took her the most seriously, and probably it shows in that she never really had anything bad to say about him. At least she kept it private as
Mhm.
opposed to making it public. And I love that Cherie Curry ended up taking care of him in his last days. That was
Yeah.
very touching. I mean, I remember seeing that because she was his greatest critic. But
Mhm.
I digress. But one of the things that I remember about meeting you is that I remember you saying something about like I'm manifesting something. It was the first time I had heard somebody use that as a verb. I mean, I won't say what you were manifesting at the time, but it was just like I'm manifesting something. And ever since I was thinking, we all have to do that. And I think we
Mhm.
forget to do that because sometimes we don't think we deserve it, or if we're not making the right contacts and we're not being the same kind of positive people, it's not going to work. So it sounds like you're always making good connections.
Oh, well, thank you. I was, as you were saying that about the Cherie Curry and the Kim Valley thing, I was ironically, and again, another blessing from the universe, I was on the phone with Kim Valley the weekend that him and Cherie Curry, it was on Father's Day, and she called him to reunite. I got, to work with Kim Valley with music in this life. And for me, that was a dream come true because
Really?
of my love for Joan. And so I got to hear, and he said to me too, when I was a musician, he said, you remind me of Joan. And I was like, that's like one of the biggest compliments that anybody, but he said my work ethic, and especially because, at such, he's like, you're so young, you're so focused. And to tie that into like the manifestation too, it's like about getting that vision and holding that vision really, and knowing that hard work, perseverance, believing, and sometimes you're right, there are always those moments for all of us. And I believe Julia Cameron, who's this amazing author, yes, the Artist Way, she also said too, us artists, like we have doubts as well, but we don't give up by those doubts. We keep going, and yeah, I mean, it's just, thank you for remembering that. And
Oh my
that
goodness, yeah. Well,
yeah,
there's a reason we're still keeping in touch after almost 10 years.
yeah, for sure. And I will say, when the getting to speak to Kim Valley right after he hung up with, Cherie, and just having that moment,
tell me about that. That's wild. I'm glad I brought that up because I've always been curious how that kind of came to be.
Yeah. Well, I mean, basically, you can't change history, and they made a piece of history. And one thing I can share with like working with Kim Valley was like getting to, he like calls it like rock and roll school, getting to learn how to write songs with him, and or rock and roll, what was it, rock and roll boot camp or something like that. He used to always say, so I'd write a song and I'd call him and I'd tell him, and he's just like, that's not going to get a reaction. You're selling this to the crowd. And I'm like, selling. And it's just like, but there were so many great things. Like he wrote a song for Kiss and he was telling me about that. And yeah, the whole thing with, I think he was part writer also for, Cherry Bomb, hello, daddy. Hello, mom. I'm your cherry bomb.
And Joan does that. I saw her play that. That was cool.
Yeah. And it's just like, hello, world. I'm your wild girl. And he's just like, own who we are. It wasn't about trying to write a song about who I wasn't. It was digging inside of who I was and owning that, so I really respected that. And I'm actually trying to think back because I haven't thought about this in a really long time though, too. But I just know that in his heart of hearts, there was a piece that always I think felt was missing. And getting that call from Cherie, I just remember it's like a proud dad, like getting that call from a daughter he hadn't spoke to in a really long time. And the fact that she was there for him really meant the world.
To him. It was something, because we live in such a world where our dirty laundry is aired online and in public, and she pulled no punches. Like she was I remember seeing the Rodney Bingenheimer documentary, and she was really critical of Kim Fowley, and his reputation preceded him. However, I always sometimes had just such respect because he had an artistic vision. He wasn't a moron. I even liked that he was in the California National Guard. He was in the Army.
Yeah. I forgot about that, but yeah, he does. He tells the stories. There's definitely education there. Like now, actually, because I just like it's all starting to come back to me though too now. And I mean, another thing that he said too is rock and roll is not safe. And so many people try to play the safe, and he's like, that's not rock and roll. Rock and roll is freedom. It's really the allowing exactly that, to be who we are. And I really respect that. And I really feel like, again, it's like, that's a part of who I am, but also getting that like affirmation and that assurance of like, pushing these boundaries, like visually, songwriting wise, audio wise, it's such a gift, to get like, that was part of like my, how do I say, like, the basis, of developing as an artist and getting those, those talks and the critique too, like times where I was like maybe holding back, and it's like, don't be shy, and getting that push really. And then it's like that training too, conditioning of an artist.
And it easily translates into another medium, right?
Totally. And I think actually, like I semi credit though too, like with Kim, because like I love music so much, and but I've really found my my niche and my like like it was like that missing piece with costume design. And for me, it was always like really loving the show part of it, you know. And he was directing something and he asked me to come and be a part of it. And that was one of my first introductions to actually working on a film project. Wow. But then I got really upset and I was like, cut me out, cut me out. I didn't want to be on camera. I was like, I love everything I'm doing that's like, you know, behind the camera. And, you know, not that it was like bad. I was just like, you know, I just really like got serious with like, I want to be taken serious as a costume designer, and this is really my path, you know, and really this is who I am and this is what I do. But again, I think that it's really, again, it's a huge blessing because it does help me, like, especially when we're filming, you know, and I'm working with musicians and I understand like what the drummer needs, you know, to look good and to feel comfortable. The guitar player, it's like, I'm not going to load him with a bunch of crap knowing that there's going to be a guitar strap and a guitar, you know, understanding a live performance versus a shooting on camera, you know, because the musician, the most important part is the performance really. And the clothes need to, whether it's still, it can be elaborate, but it needs to complement their movement, you know. And so understanding what type of music, how they move as an artist, you know, like yeah, just all of that really.
Do you ever watch old shows for rock and roll ideas? Do you ever watch like stuff from the 60s or the 70s?
Yes, definitely. I mean, also depending on like what's the project. Like for example, when I just recently costume designed the TV series Paradise City, and you know, I try a lot though too when I'm like designing for these artists to not make it a certain thing, but rather again, and I, you know, maybe this is just part of like my, how I was trained though too. It's really to pull out, each one of us are unique, right? So as an artist, it's pulling that out and enhancing and embracing that. That's what's going to make you different, as long as we are being true and authentic to ourselves, you know. But I don't want to remake somebody to look like Robert Plant or Jimmy Page, because they've already done that. However, and they are referenced a lot, right? But if we take an inspiration from what they've done and then we mix that with what that individual is doing, then now we can create something that is, you know, like it's brand new, distinct. And that's what you know, it's like we could either be a leader or a follower. And to me, I feel like rock and roll really is like leading the way, or whatever. It can still even be pop too, you know. There's always somebody new coming out, like when Billie Eilish came out, who was songwriting like she was, you know. It's that she really went in deep and then found who she was and delivered that to the world, and everybody takes notice.
How's that documentary? I want to see that.
Oh, it's so good.
I've heard from so many people to see that. I don't know much about her, but I heard that she, like, you know, she loves her parents, and there's things that aren't so typically rock about her, but she's also a young, fearless girl, which is cool.
She is. It's like she's timeless, actually. And then this mean boy breaks her heart. It was so tough to watch. It's like, how can you not acknowledge her uniqueness? But sometimes, I mean, you know, being unique too, and being different, you know, everybody like can see her as like the superstar, but she's still a human being at the end of the day. And I think she's very vulnerable and sharing that with the world. And I took a lot of respect towards her in that moment.
Well, guys could be really fucking stupid, you know.
I know.
They're usually like 10 years behind any. I mean, I think back, I'm always thinking I'm 15 years behind in terms of like, I finally get it right. Not necessarily with women, but just in general. But so that's really cool. And by the way, this is so much, I like this conversation better because the last time we had such bad audio problems, and like everything's cool. You look great. I love there's almost like, what do they call it? Chiaroscuro lighting coming in.
Yeah.
In your room.
The sun's starting to go down
right now.
Actually, the sirens are coming by.
So, but life is good. I mean, I remember you contacted me recently. Well, we are in touch, but you said, "Yeah, man, I've got this new attitude, or I've got a whole new." I'm paraphrasing, but I've got this new philosophy and ethos, man. I gotta get it out there. You know?
Yeah. I had a couple life-changing, you know, experiences through the pandemic, and I definitely took really did have such a I don't even know how to put words on it, but I believe when we last spoke though too, you know, just the awareness of how powerful the mind is. And I'm a mental health advocate, and understanding and respecting, like, to really take time, for ourselves as humans, and, self-care, self-love, like all of that stuff, and breath work. And, again, like today, taking that moment for myself and acknowledging and say, wow, like I've been on my feet since 7 a.m. I'm tired. I knew that I had this coming up, and setting a 10-minute alarm for myself and saying, for these next 10 minutes, I'm not looking at my phone. I'm not answering it. It's just like really putting me as number one, and being the better version of myself.
You find, you mentioned Julia Cameron, and I thought, wow, man, I've got to do the morning pages again, because I read The Artist's Way. It was life changing. And I once, I know Pete Townsend, and I sent him like an email saying, have you ever heard of The Artist's Way? He says, oh yes, it got me off of, alcohol. I love it. I need to start doing those exercises again. It's true, because you do take some time, and you're grateful. And it's hard though, especially with people who have to stay in, or who had to stay in and couldn't get out there and work. That's a drag, because you don't realize your full potential when you're in quarantine for X number of months.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that people just need to get out and do stuff. And thankfully you're working and you're constantly engaging, which is a fantastic thing.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm super grateful. I think, also for me too, it's just reminding myself to also live too, because my work is so much of being of service to others, that reminding myself, like, okay, and not really so much as reminding, but I push myself really hard. I work really hard. I set a really hard, like, high bar. I genuinely care. And the importance of getting the right amount of sleep, the importance of also taking a vacation, and it's really, for me, it's like now I'm not so hard on myself, but it's finding that balance as well too. And yeah, like, to just really, the best way I describe it is like learning how to drive stick shift in a car, right? And that first, like, first gear, you gotta like learn how to balance, getting off the clutch just right. And it's like that moment. And then you get into first gear, but you quickly have to go into second gear and third. And I was kind of like trying to do it perfect, and like, I'm not doing this right. Like, I only knew how to work. I didn't know how to take time off. And the first year of the pandemic taught me that. Then I finally, my body, I had to teach myself like how to sleep like a normal person, kind of, in a sense, because I was so trained and conditioned to learning how to operate off of like 4 or 5 hours a night of sleep. Like, literally would wake up early, start like working on the East Coast time zone, and, trying to maximize the days. And then the second year of the pandemic, though, then I jumped back into work, and then my body was nice and rested. So then I like hit that part where I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm so exhausted. And I finally just surrendered, and I took some time off of work. And again, just like learning those modalities, like what you're saying, it's like the morning pages, and taking that time in the morning, and doing these really simple practices that are so much fun. They're so good for the mind, and especially as a creative person. And you're a creative person too, because you're constantly doing something. And yes,
sort of. You're my hero, and I'll tell you why. Every time I get a text from you, and it's 7 o'clock, or like it could be 7 o'clock in Chicago time, and I'm thinking, she's up at 5 fucking a.m. in Los Angeles. It's amazing, because I guess, the early bird catches the worm. But you've chosen something. The one thing about rock and roll and acting, or something like that, at least, people eventually come around, and they might know what goes into all of the work, especially the creative work. But when you switched careers and you got into something in costuming and design and things like that, and wardrobe, the work really speaks for itself. I mean, it's so tangible. And there's probably something, if you are somebody driven by anxiety or and I'm not saying you are, you might be, but if you're driven by something where it's got to be good, at least there's something tangible and there's something that you will be judged at the end of the day, especially if you've gotten the job already. That must be far more rewarding than like anything else, because there's so much bullshit in that town. And here, your work has to speak for itself.
Yeah,
For itself.
definitely. I mean, I do my absolute best to stay in what I call like a bubble, keep a good team of people around me, keep a good small little tight knit circle of friends. Everybody that's in my circle is definitely a priority, or it's just like it's that simple. If
Right.
something just seems like there's only 24 hours in a day, and so how are we going to fill that 24 hours? And the one thing that like we can't buy more time. So we have to really plan according to the day. And I also do my best to keep it simple into the one day at a time. Like, and that was another really beautiful thing though, too. Like the practices like the artist way and stuff like that. The real magic and the real gift is being present right here, right now in this moment, because this is what we have, and also a thought can formulate a thought, right? So it's like I do remind myself too, especially in those like tired moments where it is pushing that, because creating and designing a costume, we have until that costume is caught. It's what we call as when it gets oh my gosh, my tired brain, but I'm not that tired right now. Actually, pretty
When
rested.
it comes to like when
Well, once it's and I'm like, why am I
once it's pulled from the racks or the bolts down and
no, once it's on camera, I
okay,
don't know why I'm spacing on this.
that's
It's
all right.
I know it's like it is the word. It's it's like
Camera ready?
a script. No, it's established. Once we
Okay.
establish the costume on camera for continuity, we can't go back and change it unless they like it's super in the beginning and the director or the producer is like overcalls that. But once the costume's established, we go forward,
Yeah.
so I know that my time I have up until that costume gets on the actor or the musician, whoever's wearing it, on camera, on set. And then once they roll, that's it. And then then I can exhale at that point. And yes, when I watch the monitor and it is what was imagined, it's such an amazing feeling, and then it's even great too because I take more of like the Andy Warhol approach of like make art and then put it out into the world, and then when the world is judging that art, you're in the process of making more art, and but when I do get like
Except when
feedback.
it comes to continuity, you know. And,
Oh.
and Andy would say, "Why do you have to keep changing his shirts? Because it has something to do with the shot."
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But that's where the beautiful, like, then we have our team of people who will watch and maintain and make sure that the continuity is being
Yes.
kept proper on camera, and our teams of people, because it does take a team, it really does. And again, like with what you're saying too, when we're working these hours, finding these like the amazing team, I am so grateful. I have like a handful of people that are what I call like my work family, and over before you know it, like days become weeks, weeks become months, months become years. We're celebrating each other's birthdays, or and it's always so nice that like when everything comes together, it is, you're right, it is an amazing treat.
When I'm curious about the, because I want to ask you more about the artist way and how that might have helped you and when, because um, there was my sister-in-law sent me some link, I think for the Tom Hardy or some, who's a writer. There's like some kind of 30-day program. And I was watching the video and it was talking about keeping morning pages. I was like, all right,
Hmm.
that's Julia Cameron. That's the artist way. What drove you towards something like that? Not to say that you're not always trying to evolve, but was there something that helped?
Well, I heard about the artist way through a lot of friends of mine that know me personally, and they were like, "Oh, have you ever done the artist way?" And it just became a reoccurring theme. And then, learning about Julia Cameron, and so I was like, "Wow, I really want to do this again." I planted that seed, put it out there, and
Manifested
and
it.
I was on a meditation retreat because I was always fascinated by meditation, but I was like one of those people, I just couldn't quite get it. I was like, I don't think I'm doing this right. So I flew to Sedona for this retreat. And when I was there, one of the people who runs the venue of where we were at for this retreat is good friends with Julia Cameron, and told me, oh, she was just here a couple weekends ago. She did this retreat. And I said, what? So I just, kept my eye. And then I saw that she was doing another retreat coming up. And I flew out back to Sedona to do the retreat with her.
Nice.
And one night after, the retreat was done, I got invited to this like after like type thing. And there was like 4 people sitting in the room, and she walked in and sat next to me, and we got to speak for a little bit,
She's an inspiring lady, isn't she?
Amazing. I mean, incredible. And she's a writer, and we just talked about, a variety of things. And I shared some stuff with myself to her. And that was, I mean, firsthand inspiration. I was like, wow, like this is so cool. And, so I have the workbook, I have the book. And I will say, like, when I do it, I do feel like it's such a subtle shift, but the inspiration, it's like, it's really interesting because as a creative mind, it's like these thoughts just flow. And also it's like when people are like under pressure, or even if I'm like super tired and I'm doing these practices, I maintain, and I've had a couple people, even just this morning, I received a phone call from the director, from Debbie, and she's like, I really respect that you just maintain calmness, through everything. And I give credit to these, different, artist ways and different things that I do, do my best to do, that it really works,
It also, because what you're doing is very physical too. Would you say that, what do they say, strong in body and mind? Are I just by talking to you, I bet you don't even drink caffeine anymore, do you?
I don't. I
Oh
gave
my
up
God.
caffeine. Yeah, I had a weird experience last year where I woke up one morning and I had a cup of coffee, and my body just reacted different. And I took that really seriously as a sign. And I said, I remember early on when I was, actually, I was speaking with a designer friend of mine, and she was on this really big show. And actually, I'd flown out to do some photo shoot stuff with her, and I offered to get her coffee, and she said, "Oh no, thanks. I don't want to have those like jitters. I'm tired and I need to focus." And I was like, "Whoa, how can you work without coffee?" And then now here I am. I find that I can actually focus better. I can sleep better, and I can easily problem solve, make decisions more clear when I'm in a calmer state of mind.
And wake better. You're waking up better, right?
Yeah. Well, I was reflecting on this like over this past weekend though too. I wrapped this job and I was really tired, and again, now I'm allowing myself to take a couple days. Like it's important, to just do nothing, like relax like a normal person, and I was observing my body and realizing that, not having caffeine allowed, or I felt at least allowed myself to really rest. And to really rest, is to really, again, like, I just know this through transcendental meditation though, as well too. When the brain rests, the better rest that we get, the more clear that we are in the moment, the more that I'm really showing up and living my life, in the present moment, which is to really live.
What about diet, in terms of diet and eating?
Yeah.
Because I'm asking. I just
Oh,
want to
yeah.
know.
I believe in all of this as well too. I do follow, I'm not perfect. I love sugar, but I try to find like a really good balance. But I do know, like, I don't juice too much because juicing has sugar. I mean, I can go on and on. I never get asked these questions. So
Bread and stuff like
but
that.
I do have a lot of information if you do
No,
want
I'm curious because
yeah. I mean, I drink mainly non-caffeinated teas, a lot of water. I stay away from like super sugary drinks. I get my, all of my greens, like spinach. I love chicken. I love pizza. Like I did eat a slice of pizza today, but I just do my best again to like I pay attention and observe. Actually just did a interview the other day, and he asked me about a question like, what was my favorite musical, um, one of my favorite musical experiences. And it was like, had just woken up that morning, and I was thinking about it afterwards, and I wanted to say like Glen Campbell, but I can't go back and rewind that. So I was like, oh, well, we can only work forward.
Well, no, but if you want, pretend like this is the clapper right now. What are some of your greatest memories of outfitting bands, and like who have you worked with, all that kind of stuff?
Oh, one of my greatest memories would be working for Glen Campbell very early on, and such a legend, and learning the importance of he treated every single person with kindness and respect, and to watch somebody who's a legend, who has changed the face of music in so many ways. Just he would greet you and ask your name, and he would have a song for you. So it's just like he had this magic of lighting up the room and really making you feel special as a person. And I just remember saying, like, I look up to him, and this is the person I want to be too. Um, so
Do you have any favorite songs
by Glen or
by Glen? Yeah.
Oh, I mean, I really liked Wichita Lineman is really good, but he had because I did his whole final tour, his final run for that, the press and the tour and the Grammys, like getting to do the lifetime achievements for the Grammys for him, was really a magical moment. And his children were his backing band. So there's, I liked his final record that he did actually too, which, sometimes when you do later things, it's like, but there was a lot of like, I felt like there was hit songs on that. And I would also say musically, another memorable moment was when the Hard Rock London, um, the Hard Rock Cafe, they have all of those legendary, iconic costumes that are up in there, like Elton John, Ozzy Osbourne, Jimi Hendrix. Like you get all the memorabilia.
Yeah.
And when I was asked for my designs to be up there, and was invited to the new London, or it was in the Piccadilly Circus, but the first original Hard Rock was in London. So getting to go out there and have my costumes designs to be, they're up in display now in London, like I was just like, wow, this is like really, really amazing.
Did you go to the King's Road and watch, like, just kind of walk in those areas where fashion was always king or queen?
Oh yeah, I mean Vivienne Westwood is for sure one of my favorite, and I actually went to her son's. He's a fashion designer too, and so he has a store there, and I got to go there, and I got to, I mean, lots of things with fashion. I went to McQueen's, Sarah Bone Foundation there, which they keep art alive, and they do actually sponsor up and coming like other fashion design students that are underprivileged. He left that in his will. So getting to be there and be amongst his colleagues and speaking amongst people and other artists, it was really magical.
Have you ever met Steve Jones anywhere in LA?
Oh, from the Sex Pistols?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I met him before. Yes. Yeah.
It's just interesting because he would run errands for Malcolm McLaren and Vivian. Like he was like living there around the time of the Pistols. And I think that he had mentioned that he was always very kind of inspired by they were always working, and they were always like sewing something or and I always like that imagery that it, when he wasn't stealing, he was inspired by those guys.
That's amazing. I didn't know that. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
But, shall we?
Yes, ma'am.